Let's talk VDML with KJR.
So let's talk VDML, and so we have our special guest G here, and she's going to talk to us about her experiences in going through testing an LLM, looking a little bit about the risk as well of what we're trying to test for, but also how we're going to automate testing going forward, because LLMs are forever evolving and changing, and to do a test now, if you put one prompt in now and we do it again in 30 seconds, we'll probably get a different answer. And so how do we do that? So I guess I'll throw to you. What sort of frameworks have we been using to test our LLM or various LLMs?
So far I've been testing the framework there was one called DeepEval, and then the other one called TruLens, and then the other one called Lengthening.
Okay.
And then we had a couple more others that we looked into, but these three are the major ones that we're looking into. Yeah,
and so what's, in terms of when you were evaluating each of the frameworks, what were the kind of things that you looked at as the key features that set the good from the bad?
The key features were the UI interface, and then the ability to provide us a reason why it ended up with that scoring.
Yeah.
So if I show you here.
Yeah, cool. Love a live demo. What can go wrong?
This is TruLens.
Yep.
It allows to show this evaluation, and then at the end it has this scoring part.
Yep.
And then after you click onto it, you can see these traces.
Yep.
And then here.
Yep.
And then if you click onto this, it gives you the question that I had put in, and then the context. So this is the document that I have been. It's like referring to when providing the response.
The response, yeah. And so for the what we've got on the screen, so to sportscast it a little bit, just in case we don't manage to be able to project the screen at the same time. So the questions that we're asking, so it looks like we've got a VDML. What is VDML source document? So is that the podcast or the description of what VDML is in terms of the source document? And then you're asking, well, what is VDML? So what we're expecting, I suppose, quite in very simplistic terms, is when you ask the LLM, what is VDML, it comes back and it tells us all about what VDML is.
Yeah.
And then you're evaluating that so you're evaluating what we would think the response should be with what the response actually was. Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. And so this one's come back with a pretty strong result there. I'm assuming that 1 means 100%.
It is.
Is that an accuracy score, or is there some other measures in how you come to 100%?
So here, the one which I've clicked onto says context relevance and code reasons. So it's the scoring of how relevant the context is compared to the question that it was asked.
Yep.
So it's given a perfect score, saying that the context that it fetched is absolutely relevant to the question.
Yeah, okay.
And then here's the reasoning. And then it gives you the reason why it ended up with that score.
Yep. And so what you'd expect in terms of what we're trying to achieve with being able to automate it is to run this test again and again and again. So given it's come out with a perfect score, we would then expect that every time we run that test again, it'll come out with a perfect score.
Yeah,
cool. Oh, that's very cool. And so in terms of the UI, like this UI looks quite mature, I would say, in terms of how it was. How did it compare to some of the other tools? Were the other tools sort of command line, or did they all have a web interface?
Not all of them has a web interface. The three major ones do have the web interface, but the other ones that I've been testing with, there was one called LLM Framework. It didn't have any interface, but it does give a list out through the command line.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, and then in terms of, because I think the thing about the LLMs they're constantly changing, how did you come up with the questions? I mean, this particular question is quite simplistic, and in terms of an LLM, if typed into Google what is VDML, it's a relatively simple task for Google to then go to the KJR website and go, oh, VDML, validation-driven machine learning, I'll get that right. So that, that in and of itself is a quite simple question. How does it go when we start asking more complex questions? Do we get better do the answers get better, or they take a bit more interpretation, or what's that look like?
So because this one is based on the other information assistant, it's always fetching documents.
Yeah.
And then the response can only come from
the document. Yep. So it's all, as they call that, grounded. So it has to be a grounded response.
Yeah. And because of that, if there are some parts that are missing from the document, then it will try to provide the most closest answer.
Okay. Yeah.
But that also comes in how they calculate the vector score.
Yep.
So
when you say vector score, is that it breaks the response down into, we've got like a paragraph there about what VDML is, but then to get a vector score, it kind of breaks that down and then does a comparison of how many times does VDML appear in there or something like that. Is that the way that it works, or how does a vector score work in simple terms?
In simple terms, well, so firstly it grabs a document and then divides all the words into a vector score, and then stores that into a vector storage.
Yep.
And then after that, when user puts a question in, it changes the question into like a keyword format.
Okay.
And then scores that into vector score, and then it fetches the most closest one from the vector storage to the user.
To the user's one. Okay, that makes sense. And another one, you mentioned this one's connected to our instance of the Info Assistant, which is based in Azure and uses OpenAI as the LLM background. Have we tested this same process against other LLMs that are available in the market or in the ecosystem?
Oh yeah, I've tested with the ChatGPT one, OpenAI, and then I've also tested with Llama 3, which is the one that came out very recently.
Yep. Yeah, by Meta, if memory serves me correctly, isn't it? Yep. Yeah, cool. And so were the results comparable, or were they vastly different?
There wasn't like a big difference, but that could be just because of the limited question that I'm asking to it.
Yeah.
But if we go more broad way, we have another teammates who are generating these test cases, the specific question.
Okay. Yeah.
So once we put those questions in, it may show much difference.
Yep.
But at the moment, not much.
Not much difference. Well, I guess that's a good thing, I suppose, if we're getting two different LLMs and we're asking the same question with either the same or very similar input, then getting the same answer or very similar answer is a good thing. So that's nice and consistent. And so when you're talking, you mentioned that some of the teammates are creating the tests. What sort of process are they going through to create the tests? And I think when you say tests, that's the prompts that we're putting into the LLM. Do you know what sort of tests, like what sort of process they're going through to set those tests up or to create the tests?
I know that they're putting more focus onto like sensitivity area, such as checking for like any harassment or like any swearing words involved, or anything that can take over someone else's like personal information. Yeah, they're putting more focus onto that area, as well as checking the relevance. Yeah. But yeah,
cool. Yeah, I think AI safety and those guardrails are going to be, so more important. The smarter that the LLMs get and the AI and ML gets, the more difficult it is to tell whether you're talking to a real person or communicating with a real person, and therefore if they're starting to create deepfakes, then that can be super tricky. And so in terms of setting up this environment, like, can you step us through the process that you went through? So I think you said there's three tools that we like, or that we've found to be quite useful, and a few that haven't. Was the process just to do some research on the internet and then essentially establish an instance of them and test them, or how did we sort of narrow down to these three?
Firstly, I went into Google and then I just searched the evaluation framework for LLM models.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went through their GitHub repository and then seen the description. And I've especially picked the ones that have UI and the ones that can provide lots of options for the feedback.
Yeah.
So like the relevance to the question of the question to the response, and then the ability to score the relevance between the context and the question, and then the context to the response.
Okay.
And then I've set up the framework in this repository.
And so, in terms of the infrastructure needed to set up the trial, is it just running on your laptop, or have you got it set up on a AWS box, or where's it live?
It's just on my local machine.
Yeah.
And in the GitHub repository.
Yeah.
We don't have complicated data set yet, which doesn't take up too much of your storage, which is why I only have on my local machine at the moment. But maybe once the team who are creating the test cases, I've seen like thousands of questions has been already created. Yeah. So once that comes in,
might need a bigger machine.
Yeah.
And so in terms of one of the things that we wanted to explore in the series of VDML podcasts is around the skills transition required for AI, because there's a lot of I would say hype in the everywhere around AI is going to take our jobs and ML is going to take our jobs and the robots are coming and all this stuff. But how did you find the process of setting up this framework to test the LLM? Was it particularly complex, or was it what skills did you have to use to get set up?
Not very complex, but it will be complex if the people doesn't have the background in software development, or who doesn't have understanding of Git. But if you have understanding of Git and language Python, then it's very simple. You just have to go and download the requirements of this framework. And then for mine, I have been applying it onto a Jupyter Notebook. So it looks so that I don't have to jump between pages. Over pages. You just have a bunch of different input fields and outputs, isn't it? So cool. And are those skills and languages that you've mentioned, are they equivalent to the ones that you use every day when you're creating automation and doing performance testing in your in what we would call our traditional type area of testing? Is it the same skill sets or different? Similar skill set for automation, I say, because it requires some like Python language. It doesn't have to be Python, but as long as you have the understanding of the programming language, then it's pretty similar. And then Git is something that all software development or people use. Okay.
So it hasn't been that big a change to be able to test the AI, as some people might think.
Yeah, but it's like you do need to gain an understanding of what LLM is, before you run it, because you probably want to find out what it's doing. And so let's explore that a little bit. So like to most people, me included, the LLM is a nice little text box, and I put in a question / a prompt of what I want to get out of it, and I hit go, and then it comes back. I'm sure there's more to it. So which bits, so what's behind that you need to understand to be able to test it effectively? So for each LLM, there are different types of LLM. So like the Azure Information Assistant that I've been testing particularly, it's it's a type that fetches document that's already been uploaded by the user, and it doesn't refer to any other context that exists in internet.
Yep.
So, but then the very well-known LLMs such as like ChatGPT are fetching the information from internet.
Yeah.
So there's a difference in when I tested Azure Information Assistant, I also wanted to test and evaluate how well it fetches the document from the vector storage and then how relevant that is.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like normal ChatGPT, it would be more like how well the response is formed from the user's input.
Yeah, because it doesn't in the normal ChatGPT instance, it doesn't have that document. So if we were asking about VDML in this instance in Info Assistant, we've uploaded a bunch of information about VDML and the details, whereas ChatGPT 4 would have been trained and would have seen VDML from our website, which is a filtered view. So with that differences in LLMs, like how's the best way to set up your test cases? I guess is because you've got just testing one LLM doesn't necessarily give you gives you an answer, but it may not be the best answer. Have you found a way to sort of, if we're testing the Info Assistant, punch in the what is VDML, we get an answer back, then do we check that against what Llama thinks or what OpenAI or ChatGPT does, or is there a particular process we use for that?
Not really a structured flow, but I did prepare some other Jupyter notebooks that I can upload the document temporarily and then see how well it fetches with the same question inputted.
Yep.
So and then I can easily just change the LLM model which I want to run on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that way you've got a bigger sample of what is, what's the range of answers that there might be and stuff like that. So yeah, cool. Okay. And then just what's been the from your personal experience, what's been the most fun piece of this? And then on the flip side, what's been the most challenging piece of this, exploration into testing an LLM from your perspective? So,
say the most difficult, challenging part was understanding the vector of LLM, and then finding out what metric to use for scoring these LLMs.
Yeah.
Because you have to choose appropriate one for that particular type of LLM. But then for the fun side is when you change a single word, that can also change the whole response.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So I've been spending lots of time seeing that behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you getting good at predicting what it's going to come back with based on that, or is it still random?
Still random.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Oh, that's cool. And here's one of the other pieces. Again, looking at how people can use VDML, but also how do we actually get to the point of being able to test? What's the key skill if someone said, I want to get involved in testing an LLM in an automated manner? What would be the key skill that you would suggest that they have or recommend they acquire if they didn't have it?
Well, firstly, Python.
Yeah.
That's the basic one that you have to use. And then another one that I would recommend would be, there's a framework called LangSmith. LangSmith, which has another word called LangChain.
Yeah.
For actually generating an LLM.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And once you cover that, what LangChain does, you can get quite easily understanding of what LLM does.
Yeah.
So that's...
Okay. And is there any information, did you come across a dummy's guide to LangChain, or is there a training course on that, or is it just happens to be you need to just go and do a whole bunch of research and was there a particular article that you would refer to, or?
There is a tutorial already prepared by the LangChain.
Oh, cool. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so this is the page that you would recommend people bookmark, maybe set as their homepage to come in and understand LangChain.
Yeah. So if you just go through this page,
Yeah.
and then there are more like things down here.
Yeah.
Then there's also a page that describes very well about the vector storage too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so what are you looking forward to in terms of, you've obviously got a fair understanding now, or better than fair, a good understanding of how the LLMs work and how the testing frameworks work with the LLMs. What's the next challenge that you want to undertake and crack into so we can set up for our next catch up in our podcast in a month or two's time?
The next challenge. Well, there was one thing that I want to work on was I want to find the best LLM that can be used as an evaluation of the LLM.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, nice.
So I have been testing only with Llama 3 and ChatGPT, OpenAI.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if we get a chance, we could also use the Microsoft Azure OpenAI LLM.
And maybe is it the Google one that's is that called Bard, I think, if memory serves me correctly as well. So
Yes.
yeah.
There are because LangChain also, you can see in here it supports lots of LLMs.
Yeah.
Already, so maybe you could cut down to some, and then try them out.
Yeah, cool. That'd be good. And have you found that testing the LLMs, have you found that it's could be useful in your day-to-day job, like using a CoPilot or LLM to help you with your daily chores? Has that sort of weaved its way into your work pattern, or is it still in an evaluation phase?
It's getting into my daily habit.
Yeah.
But when I am stuck in one thing, I can just go and ask to CoPilot, and they will provide some recommendation. And then when I'm just stuck, there's the starting point that I should always go to, and then one of them will work. So.
Yeah, since I guess you run your own little testing process there with the answers that come back. You're like, does that work? Okay, that one doesn't. Oh, no, try the next one. So no, that's cool. Very cool. Well, we might wrap it there. Thanks very much for taking the time to chat with us, G. And I certainly learnt some stuff. I'm going to be setting LangChain as my homepage now to be able to look at that every time I open my browser. And thanks very much for that. It's good. So we'll chat again in a month or so.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's good. Good to have you back.